Take that, everyone who thinks my mug is empty. Christoffer friends, welcome back to Opus Elenae, where we are in for a penny, in for a pound. Last video, you may remember, I made a silk tambour beaded top, and after I finished, I thought, I obviously need something new to wear with it. An embarrassingly long time ago, I got a pattern for a Hanbok-styled wrap skirt from Sewing Therapy, link obviously in the description. Thinking I would make it immediately, I dyed up some linen in a lovely bluish, purplish gray, which then sat in my fabric stash for over a year. Until now. Everyone go grab your cuppa. Today I am drinking the first of my locked tea sampler, yes, based on the Thames and Muir books, from Friday Afternoon Teas, The Undying. It's a really earthy pu'er tea with coffee beans and almonds and figs, exactly what you need when you are staying up late inventing necromancy and becoming a god. Let's get into it. So I've been wanting to try this for ages. I got a cheap projector a while ago, about the same time as I bought the pattern actually, and I'm gonna change out my overhead camera, which is how I take all of those aesthetic top-down shots for it. Then I'll make sure it's centered on my cutting table, in focus, and all squared up. I was worried that this was going to take forever, but it was actually a lot more painless than I imagined. After I pull up the pattern on my computer, I will check to see if the scale is correct by measuring the test squares on my cutting mat. If I need to change it, I'll do so by changing the zoom on the PDF until it matches up. Then we're off to the races. If I was making a pattern that was more intricate, I'd mark the lines on the fabric with chalk, but since this is all rectangles, I'm jumping right into cutting because I like to live dangerously. What's a little irreplaceable, unmatchable hand-dyed fabric between friends? The pattern consists of 3 skirt panels, for my size, smaller ones only have 2 waistband rectangles in 2 colors, in this case, the same gray and also black, 2 interfacing panels, and 2 long rectangles for the waist ties. And that's it. The pattern calls for fusible interfacing, but I hate that stuff and I don't wanna. So instead I'm using some canvas and I'm gonna pad stitch it to the black waistband so the stitches are less likely to show. One thing I will do differently next time is to make sure I trim the seam allowance of the interlining off. I wasn't thinking about it until it was too late, and it made ironing a little annoying later. The waist ties are just long rectangles folded in half, sewn, and turned right side out. My plan for this skirt was to have one side that is all gray and one side that has a gray skirt, black waistband, and gray ties. I think they will pop nicely. To make the waistband, I'll start by marking the width of the ties in the middle of one of the short sides of each color. Then I'll sew each waistband together, skipping that marked section, and iron those seams open. This will become the opening for the waist ties, which is nice because you don't have to cut an extra hole in your waistband. Next, I'll sew the whole waistband together, lining up the seams in the back and adding the ties at either end. Then I just need to clip the corners, turn it right side out, and press. I'll set it aside to work on the skirt. First, I'll need to sew the panels together, easy enough. Then I'll need to deal with the seam treatments. Since one seam of every panel is selvage, I thought I would just fold that over the raw edge and sew it down, but then I remembered that the skirt is meant to be reversible and I don't want that fuzzy selvage edge visible, so I ripped all those seams and re-sewed them with the selvage edge turned under. No footage of this because I was so annoyed I forgot to film. Time to hem. Because it's a wrap skirt, I'm hemming before I sew the skirt up so I don't have to try and fuss with the raw edges at the skirt opening later. Again, the skirt is reversible, which means that there is going to be a right side where the hem is smooth and a wrong side where the double fold will be visible. In order to make that side look more intentional, I had the idea to add some twill tape into that hem, almost like piping, to tie it in with the black waistband. Instead of trying to do that all in one step, I folded the raw edge once and ironed that to make a guideline along which I sewed the twill tape. Then when I folded the hem over again and sewed it down, the tape was just visible. This process did what I wanted it to, but I think if I was going to do it again, I will double fold the hem and iron that so that I could position the twill tape into the hem as I sewed it. I think it would give a slightly more even result and the corners wouldn't be so fussy. The pattern calls for marking the top edge of the skirt in 1-inch increments and knife pleating the whole thing. I didn't feel like doing math to make sure that the skirt would end up pleating down evenly, so first I took a page from the Divide and Conquer book and divided skirt and waistband into 1/8. Then I clipped them together at those points and marked the inch increments to pleat each section down individually. That way, if I have to make adjustments to things, they're spread out over the whole skirt evenly. Next time, I'll mark the inches out before clipping the skirt to the waistband though. It was a pain to do it while attached. Thank you to all of my current and continuing Ko-fi members. Your support and the support of all of my members and croissants makes it easier to do what I do and provide quality content for everyone. Thank you all so much. Stick around after this brief commercial break to see me finish up the skirt. After the waistband is attached, I'm going to give everything a good pressing, making sure that the raw edges are ironed up into the waistband and that everything is as even as it can be. I don't want the wrong color to be visible around the edges of the waistband when worn. Then I can turn the seam allowance of the remaining waistband side under and attach it by hand with a slip stitch or ladder stitch, which is basically making a running stitch on alternating seam lines. In this case, I'll make one stitch along the folded seam allowance of the waistband and then one stitch along the seam line attaching the skirt to the other side of the waistband, and so on. When I pull that thread tight, the two pieces come together like a zipper with no visible stitching. Thanks for joining me today. As always, I hope you had as much fun watching this video as I had making it. I am glad to have another skirt to add to the wardrobe of things that fit me no matter what my body decides to do that day. Two, actually, if you count the fact that it's reversible. In fact, I love this skirt so much that I'm about to wake up tomorrow morning and make another one. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like and subscribe. Click the bell if you like taking your chances with YouTube notifications. If you want to find me on social media, I am at Opus Elenae everywhere, but the place you can find me most reliably is still my Discord. If you are interested in nerding it up with a bunch of fantastically supportive people, come join us at the link in the description. Until next time, be kind, do the work, continue supporting marginalized people, and keep creating. And happy Pride! Woo!